Welcome back to my channel. Thank you for joining me in this live stream. I'm streaming because I honestly don't know how long this video will be, but I thought that it would be a good video to do to help others that may be going through something similar. And this is a way that I have learned how to create in my life and how to basically thrive. Um, so let me start from the very beginning here. So 12 years ago, at age 25, I went through a major depressive disorder event that caused me to basically call a hospital and be entered into a psych ward for a few days. I stayed there for about 2 nights and a day, and I went through some counseling there. And it was all because it was kind of a buildup in my life. I was diagnosed with major or severe depression disorder at the time. And it is, well, lots of factors. It was a lot of having to do with my environment, the way that I went through losing my mother at a young age, and struggling in a world that is not so kind to those that are very highly sensitive and those that may be born with extrasensory abilities or the way that they perceive the world. And just, if you are somebody that has a different way of looking at things, sometimes the world is not too arms open for you. So that was something that I struggled with for a very long time. And eventually I just got so overwhelmed that I knew I needed some help. So fast forward, today I am a functioning depressive, which means I basically have what they call dysthymia, and it's called the low grade depression. It's high functioning depressive disorder. That's the whole medical term for it. But it's actually becoming more kind of like apparent that it's something that many therapists are understanding that a lot of people are dealing with, but it's very hard to tell because high functioning depressive disorder looks to the outside world as you're a very functioning person. You're successful, or you're motivated at least, and you seem like you're doing fine. But deep down inside, there's always kind of this perpetual sadness, and at times that can get the best of you. So you can go through cycles. And it makes sense because I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder at one point in my life. And fast forward 12 years later, it would become now high functioning depression, because depression is something that really never goes away. And what I've learned about it spiritually is that everyone has their obstacles and their challenges when they're born. If we did not, we would have no spiritual development because everything would be perfect. And really, what would there be to develop from? So everybody comes into this world kind of with cards already dealt. It's part of your DNA. You may be born with some kind of disability or a mental illness, or you could have maybe a couple limbs missing from your body, or you could be blind, deaf, or you could be blind. You could be born blind or deaf. You could have all these things that you could come into the world with. And what I have realized is that depression is just my story. It's part of my story. And while I might have not consciously wrote it into my story, because obviously people with depression would not want depression, I have learned how to cope and how to thrive and create the channel that you see today and be very motivated and driven. And I wanted to give my life story and kind of the ways that I have coped to help those that might be struggling in the same way. Because I realize that sometimes when I make my videos, there could be this wall between me and my subscribers and my friends, my melanin. And so I want to be able to really just help people understand more about me, and also to show, if I can do this, if I can move from this place, then so can you. And I just want to be another voice for high functioning depressive disorder. And I also have some things to talk about that is relating to it and what I think that we can do together as a society. So I had to write down some things. But what I basically said when I was intuitively kind of going through what I was going to say and writing down kind of the major points I wanted to get to, I said that what I realized about my episode 12 years ago and being diagnosed with severe depression when I tried to commit suicide, and I went to a hospital really just as kind of a call for help. I did not do anything physically to myself, but I was planning it. I wrote the goodbye letter. I was definitely looking at my bathtub, and I was thinking about the razors and things like that. I was definitely on my way. So I called a friend, and a friend suggested I call the hospital and I be admitted. And I was. My shoelaces were taken. Anything that was sharp was taken from me in my purse when I got there. And it was an experience that opened up my eyes, because I was with other people that had other types of mental illnesses. And I got to see a whole other perspective of the world and what other people are dealing with. And so what I have discovered is that depression is just something that I will always have within me, but I can live and thrive, and I can create from this place. And so I am a huge advocate against suicide today. And I think that I'm going to probably become an even stronger voice for it more and more, because I do see that it's becoming accepted or seen as an okay option. And I have personal experience through this, that I have been at the lowest places, but I have found my way back. And I believe that there is an ability within everyone to do that as well. I am not special. I am not unique. And today I hope that I can be a mirror for you and show you that you can too, that no life is broken. There is no life that you can't fix or recreate from. There is no life that is broken. And I really want to hit home with that, because that's something that I used to think, that my life was broken, that I was broken, I was damaged. And I realized, no, that is not true at all. And there are some really amazing, courageous, and brave souls out there in the world that are inspirations for me. And I see what they go through, and I learned a lot. So I would like to be inspiration for others that come to my channel and are struggling with this. Bottom line, Earth is tough. It is a school, it is a playground, it is a stage, but it is tough. Only the toughest souls can be part of the Earth collective. I'm sure there's other planets and there's other types of universes and realities that are just as tough, but I will tell you right now, every single one of you on Earth, you are here because you can be. That you have the strength to actually go through this world. And that's something that we have to remind ourselves, because Earth is tough. Why it became so tough or why it's so tough is a very deep question we must all ask ourselves, and look at society and look at the history of the world and look further and deeper into things. And I hope that we can do that together on my channel more and more. However, I don't like to focus on what is wrong instead of just focusing on what can we create right? What can we create new? So that's really kind of more my inspiration for everything that I make on my channel, is how can we create something new and become the change that we wish to see in the world? Earth is tough. I am a sensitive soul that believes in love to the highest degree. And I came to the world with different expectations in life, all through my childhood to adulthood. I also may have a biological predisposition to depression. It may run in my family. I do not know, but I remember seeing my mother crying when I was a child. I have this vision or this moment of kind of like remembering that I kind of came into the kitchen one day. We were in an apartment and I just saw her kind of like slumped over the counter crying, her eyes out. And, you know, that's something I could never really ask my mother right now, but I definitely think that it could be something that runs in the family. And I think that this is part of biological depression. It's also part spiritual story that kind of makes me who I am, makes me a unique soul that has to go through certain challenges and obstacles. And that's a way that you can kind of look at your depression. If you are somebody that suffers from depression, and depression is like the #1 debilitating issue in America and probably in the world right now. I mean, many people suffer from depression and they don't even talk about it. So this is something that I think is kind of lots of different things that come together to make depression kind of an important part of my life. It's an obstacle, it's what makes me unique, and it's also biological, it's in my DNA. And it's also something that I just have to struggle through, and it's part of my spiritual development. If you have watched the 7 stages and the rebirth cycles, the reason why we come into the world with some of the things that we have to deal with that maybe not so great or ideal to us is because that's part of your spiritual development. If you can get through those certain cards that were dealt to you as you were born, if you can get through your life remaining a good person, integrity and dignity and all those things, but also carry lupus or, you know, gosh, I don't know, Alzheimer's or degenerative spinal disease. I mean, the list goes on. If you can get through your life being born with something or having a predisposition for something, and you can get through your life with that, that's spiritual development. And that's what you're here to do, is to cycle through your life, getting over those hurdles. And I truly do believe that. So here's what I wanted to say. Today, I have high functioning depression and a little bit of anxiety, and I take no medication for it. One point I tried Zoloft, and I kind of took myself off of it, and then that was it. And then I just self-medicated in many different ways, and I just kind of tried to think myself out of it. And I've been successful in many ways, but also it's been hard. I do not think that drugs are necessarily bad or wrong for you, but being someone who's very nature connected and, you know, elven soul like. I truly feel that I can always find a more natural way of getting over depression and moods rather than using antidepressants, which more or less just kind of numb you. And part of my way of being kind of a romantic idealist personality, I don't want to be numbed. I want to feel. And the problem with high functioning depressive disorder is sometimes it can leave you feeling numb and you want more sensations. So that's a symptom that we'll talk about. But that's why I chose not to be medicated, because I wanted to not use antidepressants. I wanted to get through it in some other way, in a spiritual way, in a mental way, whatever you want to think of it. That was my choice, and it still is my choice. And here I am, still living on, and moving from this place of creating from not using medication for depression. So I'll continue here. My depression is not gone. And I really don't think that it ever will be necessarily, because I don't think that depression is something that you can get rid of. I think, like what I was talking about, it's a card that you're dealt with in order to move through life with it. It's kind of your burden, but it can also be your triumph. It's your story of victory. If you can defeat losing your life or losing your mind, having depression, I think that that's my story of victory. And everybody has their own unique story of triumph and victory, I believe. And I have a lot of respect for those that, climb out of the dark pit, like drug abuse and all that. And I think that depression is just my way of climbing out of the dark pit. And that's just part of my story, and it makes me who I am. So I'll say this. This is why today I'm a very big advocate against suicide, like I said, and also what I spiritually know and have discovered going through my life after this episode 12 years ago. I would say that I spiritually awakened about 15 years ago, but 12 years ago, I was still in that beginning stage of trying to get more of a clearer understanding on things. And what happened to me was, when I spiritually awakened to a lot of strange things like aliens and star seeds and higher consciousness and all that, and I remembered myself, and then I started thinking, well, everybody would be at the same place of love and all this other stuff. And unfortunately, when you're living in the city and you're a single woman, you're living on your own in your own studio apartment, and you're dating, you're constantly searching for that same type of kind of transcendent type of love and connection to others that you may have in a spiritual moment of awakening. And it's not really the case. And so that's kind of what started to have me downward spiral, even though I was spiritually awakened in many ways. But I wasn't completely self-aware. I was still very much attached to others, and I was still very much looking for love outside of myself, which is why I'm a very big advocate of looking within and really relying on yourself. And, yes, it's fine. We can make our connections to others, and I absolutely love people, and I want to connect to people. As an INFJ, I'm constantly searching for that deeper connection to others. But I am a very, very big advocate on finding the connection to yourself, finding that self-love. That is probably the most important thing, because you cannot move really authentically from any place in the world without discovering a true sense of self-awareness within. And that's really important. There are 4 symptoms of high-functioning depression, if you did not know. Number 1, you will be a tough critic on yourself. meaning self-doubt, perfectionism, and you may be irritated very easily with self and with others. So you might have what they call a short fuse, and I often have that. It's not fun being married to me sometimes. I'm like the elves from the movie, like with Elrond, like how he kind of got like a little like irritated when the hobbits would come and interrupt or something. um, my husband is very gregarious and like extroverted and outgoing, and sometimes it's irritating when I'm interrupted in my deep thoughts or when he's not understanding my needs. Sometimes I can be very irritated. I can make little things out of big things. And that's something that I have had to learn and balance. And of course, being in touch more with kind of the elven type of life codes and things like that, it really has helped me kind of balance myself a little bit more. But yes, tough critic on self, that's a huge one. Number 2, work feels like a grind, but you do it with a smile. High functioning depressives, they are hard workers and they will go to work and they will put on a mask and they will put on a smile and they will just act like nothing is wrong and they will do everything asked about, from them, but they will deep inside be sad or unhappy at their job, or something is causing kind of this low grade depression within them. So work will start to feel like it's just a grind. And to be honest, that's kind of why I sometimes at my job that I have now, although I love managing and I love like taking care of kids and I love helping adult staff, and I love working with education the way that I am. But at times the noise and just being around with high energy, I sometimes have to go into a darkened classroom and just kind of sit there and just pretend like I'm somewhere else. So I would say absolutely work does feel like a grind, but I put a smile on my face. And then, when parents come or when I'm dealing with kids, I just have a big smile on my face and they would never even know what's actually going on underneath it all. Number 3, substance abuse or overdoing things to cope, reckless behavior or over shopping. These are things I was never a reckless behavior type. I am way too cautious in nature to, I don't know, jump from a tall building with a parachute. I don't know. Adrenaline rush junkies, like I never was one. However, I definitely like to indulge in beautiful things. Part of my journey into minimalism is also about healing and reaching more of a spiritual development within myself, because I am trying to get back to what's really important to me. And that's so important, and minimalism has really helped with that. So if you are somebody that struggles with shopping addictions, you just love beautiful things, you love to surround yourself, not necessarily a hoarder, but if you go through your depressive moods, sometimes what helps me is finding beautiful elvish things on eBay or vintage stores or whatever, and I start searching, because that is a way to cope with some of the sadness that I may feel inside. And I'm starting to recognize that with myself. So minimalism is a real way of actually healing yourself from doing that, because it's about the journey of getting back to the basics and what's really important to you, that kind of keeps you from having to self-medicate through shopping. That's really important. But substance abuse, people can definitely get into drugs and alcohol and even sleeping around, any kind of vices that you may use to cope with this type of kind of perpetual depression or sadness that you may feel is definitely something that is a symptom. Number 4, feelings of wasting time or general feelings of sadness and a lack of energy. You might be tired a lot, but you don't know how to relax. This is a huge part of my life. I will be so tired, yet I'll be cleaning, or I'll be straightening up, or I'll be organizing, or I'll be shopping on Amazon or eBay to see how I can get my house more organized. And so it's important to teach yourself how to relax. And I say this a lot in my videos, and it's something that I have learned over the years that this is how I actually do cope and function. Nienna, the Vala of relaxation and rest in Tolkien's world, in the Silmarillion, that energy is so vital. It's so important to me. The resting in the gray havens. Even when I just read those small bits and pieces of what J.R.R. Tolkien wrote within his stories about rest and relaxation, it just fills my heart with warmth and happiness. And so I think that it's such an important thing, is learning how to relax. Something about feelings of wasting time is very important. You know, I am 37 now, and a lot of times I look at my life and I compare myself and I'm like, well, I'm married, but I don't have a child. I'm this and I'm not doing this. I don't have a house right now. I'm not in this, beautiful dream that I always had for myself. So I have a very critical way of looking at my life at times. I'm not here yet, and I plan to be there a few years ago. And that is just the chatter, the mental chatter in my mind. And I have to learn how to turn that off and just realize that everything works out in time. And the more and more you get into this elven energy, if you really want to open that up inside of you, you will find that that's kind of what you start to feel, is like a letting go of earthly issues, of things that are just used to be so important to you. And especially if you feel like you're wasting time or you're not doing this, nature does not rush or hurry. It moves exactly at the pace that it was always intended. And when you can remind yourself about that as a soul, that you are exactly where you are supposed to be, everything is unfolding in your life the way it will, it is so helpful to reconnect to nature in that way. And not just reconnect in the idea of like, loving and appreciating nature. Yes, I'm talking about feeling one with it, like moving as slow as the plants do, and realizing that a lot of things within yourself and in your body moves the same way that trees and plants do, or sometimes when the animals do as well. It's really important to feel oneness with nature if you really want to help yourself with that sense of anxiety and kind of wasting time and you cannot relax. You have this kind of feeling of restlessness. And there's actually a word to describe it. It's called adhendonia. Interesting word. There's 2 types. There's social anhedonia. I think it's anhedonia. Yes, anhedonia. You don't want to spend time with other people, or you do because your heart wants to. I mean, you may love people, but you also don't have the drive or the energy to as well, because you know that when you spend time with others, they're going to take a lot of your energy and you're going to have to talk about your life. And maybe you just rather not talk about your life and you want to just sit back and, maybe not even think about it. So there's that social component to it. And then there's the physical one, where you don't enjoy physical sensations as much, or, a hug can leave you feeling empty rather than nurtured. Your favorite food might taste bland and even sex or physical sensations can lose their appeal over time or during the time when you are experiencing your depressive mood. So therapists have a really hard time finding people like us because we are the ones that never ask for help. We're like, oh, we're fine, we're good. We've been functioning for a long time, and we're good. We don't need any help. And it's that driven, it's that motivation, it's this feeling of super independence, like you can handle anything, that really confuses everybody around you in your life. And it leaves you feeling very isolated and alone because you are not outwardly depressed. When people think about depression, well, severe depression disorder is when you're outwardly like, I want to off myself and I hate my life and I'm sad. High functioning depressive disorder does not look like that. You can go through periods where you are very low, but a lot of times you love life, you're happy about things, but there's this kind of sadness, this underlying sadness that you may experience. And people in your life, they might not ever know. I just told my husband today, and I was like, I think I'm going to tell him because it might make sense with some of the ways that I am towards him, and maybe he can help me, and maybe we can strengthen our relationship more. Tell the people that are around you. I feel so much better doing it, and it really helps to kind of make sense about our relationship and kind of the dynamics that we have sometimes. And I guess on top of me telling my husband, I thought, well, I'm going to tell my friends and subscribers so that I can help them too if they are going through this. And as I get more into like the elven spirituality videos and, get more and more into trying to heal others, I also want a sense of transparency where people understand that I can talk about these things because I went through them. I know what you're going through, and you are not alone. And I think that that's really important to just open myself up in that way. And that may totally be my INFJ side of me talking. But part of my desire, and it's very strange as an introvert, because people will be like, well, where are you? You want to connect to people, but where are you? Sorry, I'm in my elven towers or my forest by myself, but I love people and I want to connect to them, and I want them to know that I'm there for them if they need. But yes, it's hard to find me, but I'm here. I'm here, and part of these videos is a way of me to connect to others, even though I may not be outwardly kind of extroverted in my offline life, and I really like to be on my own. This is a way for me to connect to others and establish that deeper connection that I probably wouldn't do in a bar, or a club, or places maybe in the city around me. So this is what really helps me, feel like I'm doing what I really want to do, is connect to others in this way. So we are weird to people because they do not understand how we can be so maybe outwardly happy or optimistic or hopeful, but at the same time, there's this actual sadness to us as well. And we can go through these moments where they could be more extreme than others at times. But genuinely, this is a very difficult thing for others to know that you're going through unless you actually tell them, hey, I have high functioning depressive disorder. And it looks very different than severe depression or regular depression. So here's the other thing it says too. The other reason why therapists, I was watching a video of, actually done by a therapist, and she was like, we're having a hard time finding you. And she said that the other thing is that even though we might be those that are very motivated and independent and we won't seek a therapist, we're the ones that aren't going to go and look for counseling right away. So we also are not triggered by one event, but might be rather a sensitive soul that has a very hypersensitivity to society and to the world. So it's hard to pinpoint exactly when we became depressed. I'm sure a lot of my depression has to do with losing my mother to a brain tumor at 14 and watching her slowly lose her mind and lose faculties of her body and lie in a bed in my living room growing up. I'm absolutely sure that that has a lot to do with it. But I think also, too, it's a little bit of the way that we look out to the world. And I think that it's actually a very good thing that some people are experiencing depression. And here's why. The high rates of depression, it may give a mirror to society eventually when people start to kind of catch on what's going on, that there are some things in society that need to change. And we could do it as individuals, but as a whole, things need to change. A lot of it has to do with the economic system, the way that people work so much and don't play as much. Our hours are terrible. I was just thinking that I was like, why in the world can I only play on Saturdays and Sundays and I work Monday through Friday? It's too much. It's crazy. It's too much. You have to schedule that extra playtime. You have to find ways because you cannot depend on society to make you happy. In fact, society in a lot of ways is kind of like the agents in the Matrix, in the idea of like everything has to do with our spiritual development. So there are going to be parts of society that are going to force you to get over these obstacles and hurdles. And the way that they have established society in this economic system of rat race, basically, it makes people depressed because they're not really living their full joy. They're living to make a dollar and to survive. And we are disconnected from nature. We are living in our small little homes, and we are scared of our own neighbors because of the crime rates and because of our distrust with everybody. Lots of things in society need to change. And my vision of an advanced future for us would be ones that would basically address this. And I see all your comments, and I'm definitely going to be talking about some of the things that you guys are talking about here. So that's the other thing, is it's like a perpetual sadness about society and the world. But don't worry, I have a way to cope with it, and it's how I have learned how to move past this. The other thing that the therapist said was that it's also really a common trait in those that don't want to burden others. So they hide the fact that they're depressed and become a high functioning depressive because they're the type that never wants to talk about their problems because they're afraid of burdening others with their problems. And that's just a type of personality that you might have, where you are just not one to want to display all your issues to everyone, and you like to keep it inside. The problem is that you really are bottling up those emotions. Everybody, the most introverted soul, needs to have some type of release. Introverts are not completely disconnected from people at all. It's just, it has to do with energy exchange and the way that we kind of lose our energy with large amounts of people and gatherings all the time. But deep inside, an introvert needs people as much as an extrovert does. So that's really important, is to reach out to others and make sure that you don't feel like you're burdening others, but that's also why people tend to hide it. Also, anxiety, it comes and goes. It may only happen in certain triggers and situations, and so it's not something that you can pinpoint, and it's not something that you can take anxiety pills for, because you may not think that you have anxiety all the time. You're not always nervous or fearful or anxious, but rather it happens through certain triggers and times. So, how do I get through my life today living with high functioning depression? How do I actually make the videos? How do I actually want to even get out of bed? Because a lot of people who suffer from depression, they might experience that. And I'm not going to lie, there are some days when it's hard. But how do I actually create from this place? I have ways. Number one, be aware and proactive. Oh, be aware of your high functioning depression. Be aware that it's something that you are battling and something that's part of you, and be proactive about it. If taking your life is not a choice, which it's not a choice to me, I can't leave my husband, I can't leave my dogs, I can't leave my father in this way, I can't finish my life in this way. I absolutely cannot take my life. It's not an option to me. Spiritually, it's just not an option. So if it's spiritually not an option, then I have to be proactive. I have to get through my life in some way. So here's what I do. I have a couple things. Know your symptoms of depression. Even when you're high functioning, there are many different types of symptoms that you may feel. You might be tired, you might be overly working and cleaning and organizing and doing things that you shouldn't be when you're supposed to be relaxing, or you might be very lazy and it's hard for you to move. Know the difference in your symptoms, be aware of them. Know thyself. Are you eating okay? Is your diet the right kind of diet for you? People who are depressed need to have B12 supplements. If you are a vegetarian like me, I cannot be completely vegan. I am vegan in all ways. Like, I will not use any animal products except for eggs, because they're unfertilized and they just drop from chickens, and milk, sometimes like dairy. So I cannot be completely vegan, but I can be a vegetarian. But I still must take B12 supplements. Eggs are not enough. There are lots of ways to get B12, but you really, truly need to take supplements if you are thinking about being a vegetarian or a vegan. It's very, very important. B12 is huge in your diet because it is part of helping to balance your mind in many ways. So know your diet. Be aware. Are you eating right? Is your diet okay? Plan for the day, knowing your feelings that day. So when I wake up, I kind of take like an inventory of my emotions. Oh, wow, I feel really tired. I do not want to do yoga today. Okay, so I plan for the day. I don't push myself. I go for a walk instead. I do something else. Make sure that you're aware of how you are feeling. Be aware of food and vices that you use to cope. Eating too much sugar or chocolates or fats or whatever you love. Chips. I love chips. Be aware of the way that you cope, because if you can be in that moment self-aware and not just reaching for the food, but understanding why you're reaching for the food, that can help you too. That's really important. Make a schedule or a to-do list for the day. This helps me a lot because it helps guide through my day. It gives me clarity on my goals, and it helps to kind of reinforce what I would really want to do to make me happy. Because there might be periods of time where I might feel really sad, but I'm making this goal and I'm going to check it off my list and I'm going to go through it. Now, I am somebody, I love being aware of the world. I like to watch news. I like to be aware. I'm interested in the world. However, when you are aware of yourself in that moment and you know, today I don't feel so good, I probably should not watch the news or shows or documentaries that show and broadcast the cruelty of humans to each other. No war documentaries, no presidential speeches, nothing that has to do with politics or anything of that nature, because you know what you can only deal with on that day. I know my limits for that day. So I like to be aware of the world. However, I will be aware of myself more on that day and make sure that I stay away from things that are going to kind of show the world in a not so positive light. It's not that I'm afraid to look at it, not at all. But I know when I'm feeling too down to handle that. And I think that's really important. That's really helped me a lot. The other thing is, know what makes you anxious. If you suffer from anxiety on top of high functioning depression, which is a lot of times they go together. For me, my trigger for anxiety is feeling like I'm late or I'm going to be late to something. Although I was late coming onto this live stream, I'm sorry about that. I feel when I get ready that I am not moving fast enough, or I'm always kind of rushing at the last minute. I absolutely hate the feeling of rushing out of the house, trying to find my keys, trying to find my sunglasses, trying to find everything, because I get this overwhelming anxiety within me. Oh, I left something. I don't want to leave anything important. I'm a perfectionist in that kind of way, where I want to make sure that I leave the house with everything I absolutely need. And if I'm rushing at the last minute, I cannot do that. So, knowing that about myself, I give myself extra time to prepare if I have an event to go to. I make sure that I allow myself to get ready long ahead of time, and relaxation time a little before the event, where I can watch maybe a quick show, or I can read a book, or I could do something, because I hate rushing out of the house at last minute. And I think that that's really important. Now, that's my personal trigger for anxiety. So you just have to think deeper what causes your feelings of anxiousness, and just move with it, move with it. So that was the first way of I cope: be aware and proactive. Second way, I conserve energy. I am aware of certain people in life that take a lot of energy to be around. It's not that I don't love them, I do, but I am aware of that type of energy and personality. And I know if I can't handle that for that day, then I will make sure that I am honest and just make other plans for the day and try to meet up with them at another time. So be aware of people in your life. Now, if there are people that are constantly a drain on you in terms of psychic energy vampires, or they just are people that just don't have personal responsibility senses within themselves, and they look to you for everything and they really lean on you for everything, it is time to walk away, because they will drain you of your energy that you won't be able to help yourself. It's very important to make that discernment. And I'll tell you a secret, a little thing that I've discovered is that when you walk away from those people that you might have thought are energy vampires, years later, or even just a few months later, you may learn that they actually help themselves, and that they have improved without you in their life, if that makes sense, because they don't rely on you, so they have found something within themselves that teaches them personal responsibility. That is so important. So Conserve energy that way. If you can't exercise on a day, at least do some stretches or easy relaxation. Maybe you could just walk. Give yourself a break. I know in this world we really focus on exercise, and one of the medications for depression is exercise. However, sometimes you just feel like you don't even want to move or get out of bed. On those days, be aware of yourself, and it's your life. It is your life. There is no rush. There's no race. Be gentle with yourself, be patient with yourself, and say, I don't have to do a full yoga session today. I'm just going to go for a nice walk. Or I'm just going to do some stretches and stretch my back out and stretch my body, and that's it. Okay, so that has really helped me conserve my energy. I am not a yoga fiend. I do not do yoga every single day. I plan my days, and I make sure that I'm really ready to do it. I exercise every day. I'm constantly on my feet, but I'm not really strict with my exercise regimen every day, which is good because it allows me that flexibility of whatever I feel. If I want to just do a nice walk with my dogs, that's great. If I want to do a full 35-minute session of yoga, great, I'll do that too. But yeah, it's just about discerning where you are. So it has to do with your self-awareness and forgiveness and patience with yourself if you can't exercise that day. The other thing I have learned to do is I say no to things that are not needed or necessary at that moment. So prioritize your obligations. Don't do things just because you feel obligated to do them. Do things that you want your heart to be part of. And say no to things that your heart is just not part of. Now, of course, there are some things that you might feel like, well, I'm going to do this for this person and I'm not really enjoying this or like this. And I get that, but try not to make a habit of it, because after a while you'll start to do it all the time and you'll forget about yourself, and then you'll wonder why you are depressed, because you have no time for yourself. You have no time for your own hobbies or your own enjoyment because you're living for others. It's very important. And that can be a little bit of codependency. So you just want to make sure that you're not doing that. The other thing is I have become better at relaxing, whether it's in my environment, just the way that I have made my house, meditation apps that I use with nature sounds, and just really relaxing things that you can do for yourself through apps, nature or relaxing music you can listen to, therapeutic smells, essential oils, and textures. I love velvet. I love like soft textures everywhere. So I have like all these like soft things everywhere, and it helps. It just helps because it relaxes me. So when I'm curled up on the couch, I have this really soft, velvety blanket around me. And these are things that I found that really help me, is anything that just relaxes me. I just bought a indoor water fountain that I have in my bedroom now to hear trickling water. And if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see my picture of it. But the other thing I do is I pick movies or books that are uplifting, stories about courage, strength, and perseverance. It may resonate with you as a high-functioning depressive because it gives you that extra boost, seeing others kind of get through their hardships and their obstacles. And so I really love watching like spiritually uplifting movies and books. I stay away from things that are just not uplifting in the terms of like horror movies or scary movies or things like that, because that's for entertainment. And some people are entertained by that, but it's not really uplifting to have a demon chasing after you trying to kill your family, right? Okay, so that is what I would also suggest. Know your needs as a highly functioning depressive person. I also would recommend Lord of the Rings and books like that, because that is truly a story about overcoming the greatest obstacles and odds that you face. And living with this shadow of depression on your back is just as hard as carrying the ring to Mordor, in my opinion. And I know billions of people are doing it every day. And unfortunately, people lose their lives over it. It is incredibly difficult. But like I said, it's something that we're going to have to take a look at society as a whole, and as well as what individually we can each do. The other thing I do is I ask my husband or someone to do things for me if I am a bit too tired, like take the garbage out and other things that I would normally do. I make sure that I ask somebody. It's hard for me to ask for help, so try to get into the habit of asking people around you to maybe do things for you, because you may be too overwhelmed and you're not really talking about it, but you feel down and overwhelmed, and that's a symptom of high functioning depression disorder. So ask people. If you can't handle it at that time, then ask people to do things for you. And more than likely, because they love you and they want to help you, they will. And it's about having trust in people. And if you don't have people that you can rely on, then I understand that. Then you simply will have to make some kind of compromises for yourself. You don't have to do everything. And maybe try to make a priority list of what's really important. I mean, do you have to go take out the garbage? It would be nice if you feel a little too tired to do it right now. Okay, maybe in the morning you could do it. Okay, so give yourself breaks. That's really important. That's the only way that I have learned how to cope with the world, because the world may not give you breaks. Your boss may not give you breaks. The president may not give you breaks. Society might not give you breaks. So who can give you a break is yourself. Give yourself breaks. Relax. Have patience with yourself. That's what I've learned. Moving into the third way I have coped. Forgive yourself. Work on cultivating forgiveness for yourself and others as a daily routine of self-awareness. This is not just something to forgive when people are cruel to you or do something to you. And it's not something that you should just forgive yourself if you ever hurt someone intentionally or unintentionally. You need to learn how to incorporate forgiveness into your daily routine, because that perfectionism of high functioning depression is telling you somewhere that you're not good enough, that you have self-doubt, even though you might be doing great. You might be winning awards. You might be doing stuff. I have a YouTube channel and I think it's successful. It's growing in numbers and people are seeming like they're enjoying it, but there's self-doubt still there. There is a voice inside that still won't go away. It's that perfectionist voice. Then what you need to do is you need to incorporate a type of mantra about forgiveness. You forgive yourself for not being perfect or making that little mistake or learning. Forgive yourself. As much as you might forgive others, forgive yourself. That is huge. The other thing, recognize depression is not your fault. Okay? It is genetics. It is environment. It is the way that you have grown up and the things that you have dealt with and the events. And thirdly, it is the world and the way that society is ran. After the industrial period, things have gotten really difficult. The rat race is on. And so there's competition between people. There's this need to succeed. And there's certain categories that people are cut into as successful. It's very, very difficult. So you need to recognize that there's lots of factors to depression. And if you can do that, it can kind of lay off yourself a little bit, and it can add to that forgiveness, and learn how to forgive society as well. That's a huge one. To not look at individuals as a blame, but to see a sense of unawareness and unconsciousness that is within the collective that you can blame. Okay, and how we can become more conscious and aware as a collective together. That is really what's going to help everybody start to heal from depression. The other third thing I have is move from a place of acceptance and flow with it. Flow down the river and just flow with understanding you have depression. Okay, that is something you will carry with you on your back. But it is, like I said, it's your obstacle. It makes you you. It makes you unique. It is your life story. It's part of your life story. Just as alcoholism might not be part of your life story, it might be somebody else's. Depression may be part of yours. Depression is part of mine. So there you go. Hi, Elvin, wisdom and love. That's my challenge. That's my challenge in life, is how do I spiritually develop from moving through and in flow with depression? That is my spiritual development challenge. And each of you have maybe one or two or a few more. And in a way, it could be a karmic tie, something that you have to cut from past lives, maybe. I don't want to get into that at this point, but I will say that it seems like some of our issues that we have could be remaining from past lives that we're trying to move through so we can get through the next stages of our spiritual development and our cycle. The other thing I would say, so after you flow through it, recognize it's part of you. That's great, okay? It makes you unique. It makes you you. And people who are depressed, they can be kind of funny. They have a dry sense of humor, and they can, I'm not funny, but I'm saying I have seen other people who are depressed, and they are funny because of the unique perspective that they have on life. And so, there's this kind of uniqueness that you could see as part of you and the way that you see life. And, that's something you might have to look for yourself, and something that I'm starting to work on too. So you understand it's a challenge, it's an obstacle, it's a specific card that was dealt to you as part of your spiritual development and what you have to go through in life. So allow yourself to talk about it or to seek help when you feel too overwhelmed. And don't try to take everything on your shoulders and deal with it yourself, because you may find that we are interconnected, we are one, and that the people that come into your lives are there for a reason, to use them as you would want them to use you if they ever needed something. It's okay to let go of that control within you, or that perfectionism in you, or that need to feel independent, like you're handling your depression all on your own. It's okay to recognize when you can't handle it on your own. That's really important. And I would say the fourth core thing that has helped me is to find your own sense of spirituality. Spirituality is huge in healing from any kind of mental disorder or illness, and depression especially. Spirituality is a way of looking at your life and also seeing that there's a reality above your life, that there's something else more to it all on earth. And that is really important, because if you're somebody that doesn't have a strong sense of spirituality and you look at the material world as this is it, well, then you might just look at your body and your mind and you like this is it. You just came into the world as this person with depression, and that's it. But there's something beyond that. I mean, as far as I can tell, there's a reason why you're going through it. And when you can develop a sense of spirituality, it can really help you. It helped me a lot. Actually, in order to get over my severe depression and become a high functioning depressive person, I had to develop a sense of spirituality. And I would not say that I developed a sense of spirituality to heal me. I healed as I developed a sense of spirituality naturally. That is something that I can give you as a pearl of wisdom today, is that if you can naturally go down a journey of looking for spirituality or being a seeker of higher spirituality, that can really help you a lot. And it has helped me. That is the only reason probably why I am a high functioning depressive rather than a severe depressed person. So here's what I would say about that. Number one, meditation helps greatly to give yourself that moment daily to recenter yourself and develop a stronger sense of self-awareness outside of the world, but inside is what really is who you are. Meditation helps you find that. Once again, really important. Also, number two, knowing there is more to life helps greatly. Reminding yourself of an inner voice that you are not the depression. You are a spiritual being in a material world dealing with depression. And that is something that really helped me to see that, is that depression is not who I am. It's just part of my story. And when you can get deeper into your sense of spirituality and you feel that there's like a force or an energy that's looking out for you, it might help you to guide yourself out of that depression and spiraling down too far. The other thing I would say is recognizing a higher power or energy source within everything, in nature, in people, and it brings you a sense of calm and inner peace. When you can get to the point where you believe it and you're not skeptic of it any longer, and you just know it, you know that there's this higher energy, this higher source. Learn about quantum physics. Learn all you can about the new age science and the fringe sciences, as they're saying, or pseudosciences, and learn about the energetic world that makes our reality. When you can do that, it can really bring you outside of yourself as a material being, and you will start to move past your depression. You'll still have depression because it's part of your story. But you can at least get in touch with the source of all that is. And in moments of clarity, during meditation or walking in nature or just being one with everything, you'll have that sense of calm and inner peace. And that's probably why a lot of people get addicted to drugs, is because drugs have the ability to bring down that veil of the material world and show you what's on the other side. However, if you go to that too much, then you're not going to be living your life on earth. And I have a video coming up on what I think about psychedelics and all that. So I'll get into that in another video. How about that? And I would say number 4, there are resources and wisdoms and references and old lore and messages to fall back on in need of help. If you have a certain spiritual path, if you follow a certain path and you study certain masters or teachers of that path, you may find ways to kind of remind yourself out of your depressive moments. Like, say you love Jesus, okay? So you learn about Jesus as much as you can. Say you love Rumi, you learn about Rumi as much as you can. You love the Buddha, Siddhartha, you learn about his sayings and teachings. Having someone else to look up to besides your friends and your family, but what we call the ascended masters, can really help you with dealing with depression. They will be mirrors for you. Well, their teachings will be mirrors for you and show you who you really are inside. Last one, nature is my personal temple. I don't go to churches. I don't go to synagogues or mosques or anything, but I really enjoy getting in touch with a sense of spirituality, and I like to do it in nature. I don't like to be in buildings, and I don't like to be around a lot of people I don't know, and I don't want to have to put a mask on for them. I don't like that. So I really just enjoy kind of being in nature on my own. But if you find a community that you can be part of and you feel welcomed by, then that is also a way to help you with your depression. In fact, after I came out of the psych ward 12 years ago, and I went through my major severe depression event, I started the Zen Buddhist teachings, or well, I started to become a Zen Buddhist, and I went to a Zen Buddhist temple in Chicago, and I sat there and I met people, and it was wonderful, wonderful. I say grab onto a spiritual community if you can. If you find one that really fits with you, I think that that would be great. The Alvin Spiritual Path organization that I'm part of with the other co-founders, we are trying to create that for people, especially those that resonate with Tolkien and really feel like they get the elves of Tolkien and they want to incorporate that into the world and the energy of the Valar and everything. Well, that is a community for you then. And so, what we hope that we can be that way for everybody. And the other thing is fantasy and humor. I call it the Faerie approach. This is huge. This has been my savior in depression. Because think about it. Think about a world with nothing of fantasy, right? No fairies, no mermaids, no elves, no magic, no wizards, no sorcerers, nothing. Think about a world like that. What kind of world would that be? Yeah, I can't even think about it. It honestly, it would be too scary, too dull, too terrible for me to even imagine. Fantasy is huge. Fairy tales, it was a very big part of Tolkien's ideology and why he even wanted to set down and write what he did. And he even has a quote here. I have claimed that escape is one of the main functions of fairy stories, and since I do not disapprove of them, it is plain that I do not accept the tone of scorn or pity with which escape is now so often used, a tone for which the uses of the word outside literary criticism give no warrant at all. In what the misusers are fond of calling real life, escape is inevitably, as a rule, very practical and may even be heroic. In real life, it is difficult to blame it unless it fails. In criticism, it would seem to be the worse the better it succeeds. Evidently, we are faced by a misuse of words and also by a confusion of thought. Why should a man be scorned if, finding himself in prison, he tries to get out and go home? Or if, when he cannot do so, he thinks and talks about what other topics than jailers and prison walls? The world outside has not become less real because the prisoner cannot see it. In using escape in this way, the critics have chosen the wrong word. And what is more, they are confusing, not always by sincere error, the escape of the prisoner with the flight of the deserter. Just so a party spokesman might have labeled departure from the misery of the Führers, the Hitler, or any other Reich, and even criticism of it as treachery. In the same way, these critics, to make confusion worse, and so to bring into contempt their opponents, stick their label of scorn not only onto dissertation, but on the real escape. Oh, onto desertion, but onto real escape. And what are often its companions? Disgust, anger, condemnation, and revolt. Not only do they confound the escape of the prisoner with the flight of the deserter, but they would seem to prefer the acquiescence of the quisling to the resistance of the patriot. To such thinking you have only to say the land you loved is doomed, to excuse any treachery, indeed, to glorify it. And this was from his article Escape In on Fairy Stories. So as you can see, fantasy and humor, looking for things that make you laugh and looking for things that make you think and imagine a different world, imagine creatures and things is so very important. So very important for those that may suffer from depression when they look out to the world and when they look maybe at themselves too hard. It's very important to have, and Tolkien knew that, and that's why he wrote his story. And I think that's something that has helped me, because without my connection to fairy, without my connection to the mythical and all that, I would be a much more unhappier person than I am today. That's for sure. I would not want to live in a world without elves, fairies, mermaids, and magic. I would not want to. And I know that some people would say, well, they don't exist. Well, they do exist in stories and legends and folktales, and in the mind and the realm of consciousness they exist. They embody archetypes that people today can embody, called the otherkins. I am an elvikin. I embody the archetype of the elf. So they do exist. It's actually a true reality for many people. And in the future, people will start to see that more. So those are the coping mechanisms that have helped me. Now, I would like to just read the treatments prescribed by therapists and medical journalists. Here's what they say. Meditation, B12 supplements, setting goals often to clarify priorities in life, set sleep schedule, try something new, talk about your depression with counselors or someone you can trust, light exercise, take on additional responsibility, relaxation exercises, no caffeine or coffee. And it says a depressed person doesn't have to give up on coffee, but he or she should try to limit it to 1 cup a day. Coffee is good for an hour or so, but the low can be especially difficult for those struggling with depression. Caffeine tends to increase the release of insulin in the blood, and insulin lowers the blood sugar levels. And when you have low blood sugar levels, you begin to feel less sure of yourself and have low energy levels, which can lead to the blues or depression. Good thing I don't drink coffee. I drink tea, but I have to make sure that it's, I guess, not caffeinated tea at times. So in conclusion, I wanted to say this because I started talking a little bit about society. There is a TED Talk that I think everybody should watch, and I'll put it in the description. It's called, where is it here? It is called, Depression is something about this. Depression is a sign of our civilization or something. I'll put it in the description. I'm sorry, I didn't write it down here. But I wrote a comment that I wanted to share with you because after watching that video, I just intuitively started writing things down. And the first thing I said was this: it's not healthy to work so much and play so little. It's not healthy to not be connected to nature as ancient civilizations once were. It's not so healthy to live in homes on your own, scared of next door neighbors. Humans are tribal community seekers, and the way society has developed over time has caused many sensitive souls perpetual sadness when looking at the outside world for too long. The secret is to look within, but we should hold society a bit accountable and see if we can fix things together now. Help one another out of human depression, which is the psyche letting us know that something is not right on earth. And with that, I would say I added this, that Tolkien had a very interesting quote, and I think it has many layers to our world and to ourselves. This is what he said: "It simply isn't an adventure worth telling if there aren't any dragons." Now, dragon lovers may see that as like, oh yeah, dragons are great. We love dragons. However, Tolkien wrote the dragon as a type of an obstacle, especially Smaug sitting on the gold. He was literally an obstacle. So what Tolkien is meaning in this is that the life that you live without your dragon, your obstacle, your something to overcome, it's just not worth living. A life without obstacles is really not a life that can be lived in this reality or in this earth right now. I believe in higher dimensions and higher realities. Yes, absolutely, life is different. But in this one, we are here on earth for a reason. And like I said, earth is tough. But it would not be an adventure. It would not be the life that it is without dragons. And so you can see many different layers to that. Without the dragons in our society, without the dragons within your own life, and that are kind of like the demons or the shadow inside of you that's telling you things, or that you have to overcome. And depression is my dragon. I don't have really any other dragons except for that. And I would say that depression is my dragon. So it's about acknowledging and being aware of what it is that you are here to overcome. And doing that will lead you into a way of your spiritual development. Spiritual development is not something that everybody can follow the same way. Spiritual development has to do with your own personal life and what it is that you have to personally develop from. That springboard that you need to leap from. Depression is mine. Yours might be something else. But hopefully, if depression is yours, now you have some things in common with me, and you can see how I have coped and I have become a creator from this place. You can create from a place of depression. Depression does not rob you of your ability to create. You are a creative being. And that is why you are here on earth, is to express yourself, to create something new, to show your own unique individual light in any way that you best feel like it will fulfill you to do. And depression does not have to hold you back, but it can be something that you can move through and with, and you could start to see depression in a new way. And that's something that I've had to do. I've kind of made friends with my depression in many ways. And although depression is also my dragon, sometimes when you make friends with dragons, then they're not so scary after all. So that's what I just wanted to say. And I'll take some comments here or any questions. Yes, I'm no expert. So Trevon Dragon, perfect name right now. I'm no expert on this topic, but what helps me is instead of trying to get rid of depression, I accept that part of myself and work with it as my inner shadow, people would call it. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, Introspection is key. I mean, it really is. Um, and it's really the only way that I have probably been able to function in the way that I have. Um, Peachy fruit. Our society needs louder voices to say it's okay to work, but that it's not your only calling in life, and it is okay to find it through other more creative avenues. Absolutely. Yes, yes. And I hope that society will start to change in this way where we will go back to kind of that barter trade kind of economy where people will be um, able to sell their gifts and their unique skills and abilities and kind of get rid of this kind of I don't know, factorization of goods. Although there are some things that I think are great, I just think that we really need to get back to allowing jobs and careers to be something that can actually really make people very happy, because we are working far more than we're playing. I mean, most people work Monday through Friday, and some people even work over the weekends. So if you're working all the time, you best be doing something that you truly, truly love. And like I said, these are all ways that I have coped and I have just gotten through just living my life with this and you know, you can create from here. It actually can give you inspiration because, well, I use depression as a way to inspire me. You know, and this is one of the few videos I have done on depression. My channel is not completely all about depression at all, but I think that if I'm aware of what depression has done in my life, I want to make sure that I can help empower others to not have to go through the same. So in a way, depression has been an odd facilitator of my gifts, I guess, my abilities. Um, so yes, it's true. Oh, this is a good comment here. Magic is just light and miracle energy. Well, yes, what I'm talking about when I say magic is anything that is seen as magical. You know, Harry Potter, or the way that Gandalf saves the hobbits. Society is looking at magic from a skeptical point of view that it doesn't exist. But I know, as a white witch, somebody who actually deals with magic and is a magical type of person, magic is really, as Tolkien said, it is the art that elves have that humans were limited to because elves had this natural connection to the divine, to basically allow their thoughts to create things instantly, whereas men sometimes doubt themselves and they don't believe in the divine, they don't believe in that kind of the energetic world. This is talking about Tolkien, but that's what magic to me is very different. It's not hocus pocus or anything like that, but I'm saying in a world in which people see magic, that if we didn't have magic in that sense, then that would be a tragedy. Absolutely a tragedy. The flat money system is enslavement. Absolutely, David. It really is. Just the economics completely need to change. And I hope that we will start to see that. And I think people are having so much depressions and mental illnesses at this point in time because it is a reflection of how sick and ill society is. And so once people catch up to these realizations, and we all change everything over. One thing I would say, and I think I put this here in the end, one thing that has really truly helped me is becoming the change I wish to see. And I will say that for every single person. If you have depression, if you are unsatisfied with society or life, or the world makes you sad, then you need to become the change that you wish to see in society. And that is the secret of my channel. That's everything. My higher guides, which were my higher self, echoed down through me in a time I most needed to hear, and to inspire me on this journey to be the change that I wish to see in society. And every single one of you can become that in a unique way. And I think that's key, because the more people that do that, the more society will change. The less of that prison or enslavement will be there, and we will be liberated. All of us will be liberated. So that's what I ask of all of my subscribers. Be the change you wish to see in the world. Do it with me. And the more and more people who do it, the more society is going to change, because it will have to. It will have to alter in order to support all the people that are having these transformations and are really becoming their spiritual self on earth, rather than just a material body, basically. And that's really what the human consciousness shift is about. So this is exciting that we're going through this. So yes, I absolutely do agree. And so, yes, I will end that. That's how I lived with my sadness, and I still do. And suicide is not an option for me. So if I can get through this, you can too. I believe in you, and I know that everybody has the ability. Like I said, no life is ever broken. No. You can create from any place, any starting point. It's kind of like quantum physics, like the idea of your different reality points. And so if you think of it that way, we are never supposed to start at an exact place, but rather to constantly create from each moment. And after each event and each situation, you're kind of constantly creating. Why? Because you are a creator being, and that is all that you can do. That's all that we can do, is create in many ways. So thank you all for joining Han and Lei, and I will see you all on the next video. I'm going to get back to the list of everything that I included of what I wanted to speak about on my channel coming up. If you are new and don't know about me or anything, you could follow my Facebook page, which is High Elven Wisdom and Love. And my Facebook page is kind of where I write down like my topics that are coming up, so you can kind of keep it in mind of what to look out for if you're wondering, because my channel is strange. It's eclectic. It's going to move in ways that won't be predictable necessarily. So if you are somebody that likes to know what's coming up, and if unpredictability kind of infuriates you or annoys you, then you can follow my Facebook page, and I'll show you the method of madness, because I'm actually a very organized person. So I will write down what I do, and then you can know what's coming up. So thank you all. I think there's so many comments here, but if you have any other questions or personally want to reach out to me, elvenlightpath@hotmail.com. I'm happy to talk to you more about this. And I will see you all later, and have a wonderful day.